Okay, the attendance password is Eclipse because it's an IDE. That's not what I was thinking. There's an eclipse next Sunday around 10 p.m. I think. So go outside at 10 p.m. if it's clear and see the eclipse.
And the dome outside, is that an observatory kind of stuff, like in science building?
Oh, the telescope?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think the astronomy classes use that or something, but the moon is so big that you don't really need it. Does anybody have binoculars? I don't know. All right. Okay, homework 4, that's the WordPress one. I'll look at them tomorrow. Any questions? Good enough. And this is the book that the slides come from. If anybody wants to borrow it for a week to check it out and let the rest of us know if it's worth anything. Anybody want to? Yeah? Okay. So she has the book. If you want to take a look, you can. So you can pass that around if you want to, and then let us know whether it's. I don't know what it costs. Okay. Quiz 1. I was grading quiz 1, so some of you may have already looked at this because I put it up this morning. And it looked like people got the quiz ahead of time from somebody that took it early, and there were some things that changed. So I gave somebody. And it won't be that big a deal. So if this applies to you, create a quiz1.txt file in your hand-in directory and just say, yes, I did, I'm sorry, or whatever. And then I'll count that as a 0, but it won't have a real big effect in the end. But then I'll have a record of it, and if something happens again, then you fail the course and stuff like that. So I didn't grade them yet because I prefer not to have to look through the ones of people that are just going to get a 0 anyway. So if you don't admit that you were involved with this, and it's clear to me that you were, like you gave part of your answer applies to the quiz that I gave to somebody else, then I'll be very annoyed and I'll pursue something stronger like you're just out of the class. So just, if you did it, then say, yeah, all right, I'm not going to get away with that. Sorry about it, and don't do it again. If you have any questions, you can ask me anytime. All right, this shouldn't happen in this kind of class. This is a low pressure class. You just got to do the work. You're not going to fail as long as you try everything. So there's no reason to do that. All right, moving on then. We're in PHP land. Do you have a PHP assignment yet? Anybody try it yet? Still worried about the one for today, right? Let's just take a look at that. All right. Homework 5. Well, I accidentally did that for you, but okay, so we'll look at what I did then. I forgot that I gave you that. Okay, we'll come back to this. All right, just a quick review of some basic PHP stuff. So you should probably, a good strategy for you before you start working on a PHP program, go click on all the slides related to PHP. So there's like 2 weeks of them.
and just kind of browse through them to remember the different rules and then start working on your PHP. So it'll probably take you a half hour to kind of look through. You have semicolons at the end of the lines. You can use single quotes or double quotes. So you look through these kind of rules, and so do that before you start working on your PHP. All right, we'll start with what I started working on for today. This was our example from last time. Here's the example from today. So there's a multiplication table, and that was the that was the homework. I forgot that I gave you that for the homework, so we'll have to modify that somehow. But nobody started working on it? All right, good. Okay, so what is
All right. So what's going to be in here?
you know that anytime there's buttons and texts and such, there's probably going to be a form, an HTML form. And responding to the button click is probably going to be a PHP. So we can look at the source. Let's see. So if we look at the source here, then you have a form, and you guys quiet down. Everybody quiet down. The password for today is Eclipse. It's on the board. You can also ask somebody. All right, so there's the form. Remember, you have an action. The action is the page that it goes to when they click the button. It's the same page. And then you have method equals get or post. And if it's get, then you can see the parameters in the URL. Okay, so we can see that there's parameters operation and min and max. That's coming out of this. And min and max. And we should see then what's going to be the tag for this 0 here. Who remembers? The tag for a text box. Input. Type equals text. So we'll see. Let's see. Let's just expand them all. There's the input type equals text, and the name is min, and the name is the thing that goes in the address bar there when you click it, and that'll go into the PHP. All right, and then we're going to have another input for 10 with the name max, an initial value of 10, and initial value of 0 on those. All right, so what's the tag for this thing here? It was in the slides. Anybody? There's a vote for drop down. There's a vote for option. You can see that up here there's something options, but it's select. So it's called a select box, I guess. And you can either have it pop up like this, or you can have them all displayed depending on some parameters, but I just left it the default. All right, so that's the operation, and then you have the different things inside of slash option tags. And the one that's selected, you have a selected attribute that gets set to selected. All right. And so the other thing that you see here is a field set. So the field set puts this nice little box around the form. So that is cute. And then the legend tag gives you the legend there. All right, and then we're going to have our submit button, and the submit button has an action, and what is the action going to be? Well, no, the form has an action. So what is the submit? What are the type parameters of the submit button? What's the tag? The tag for a submit button?
Input type submit.
there's a vote for input type equals submit. There it is. And the value is whatever the text we want to display. Okay, then if we look at what gets displayed, this here, how would you display this in HTML? What's the HTML for it? What are the tags? Table is one option. You could also do it with divs if you wanted to. You could do these divs floating left in order and then a break or inside of a paragraph, and so you could do all these with divs. It's easier to do it with a table. So the code looks like this. So there's a table. The class is arith table, so that's going to show up in the CSS. And you can see here, let's see, there's a row, and then the elements of the first row are th, table header, and you can see there's some stuff coming out of the CSS. So the th.col1, the first column, gets a vertical bar on the right here. There's the border right. And then the whole first row, arith_table.th, gets, well, let's see. So there's the th that gets the border on the bottom. If we want to look at the code, so the code looks like this. You have an arith table. So remember, after the dot, this is specified with a class. And then any TD inside of it is centered. Any TH inside of it gets the border bottom. And any TH in the first column, any TD in the first column gets the border on the right all the way down. And any TH and any TD gets a larger font size and a little bit of padding. So if we want to make it look bigger, come on. We will pause to wait 30 seconds while the computer, let's see, come back. All right. So if we want to make it bigger, we could make the font bigger, we could make the padding bigger. Okay, so that is the table. Lots of tables, they all have lots of rows, so they all have TD, and the first column is of type column 1. All right, and this is, so another, if we look at the, well, so if you're looking at the HTML, one thing we could have done is we could have had inline style, but then we'd have to have the same style declared on like every single element. That would be really annoying. Agree with that? So it's definitely the right thing to do to put it in the CSS. Now we want to look at the PHP. So you can know ahead of time that this part up here is probably going to be mostly just HTML. Just HTML, and then there is some PHP in here, because if I say divide, generate table, this is still divide selected after I submit. Or if I go from 5 to 15, the parameters are still there, they didn't get reset. So there's some PHP up there to make sure that happens. But then this down here, you're going to guess that I'm not doing that in HTML, right? That's PHP code generating that. So let's take a look. All right, so PHP starts. We got all the usual stuff, and then our form here. So I will often do this before the form, and I'm going to put Emacs in text mode because it doesn't indent properly with PHP. All right, before the form loads, see if was already submitted, and get values if so. Otherwise, default values for form. So the first time they load the form, this get variable is not set. And if it's not set, then these are the defaults. This was where I would change it to put the defaults in. If it is already loaded, then these, I just create variables with shorter names to get whatever's already in there. And this operation comes straight from the form. This select that has the name operation. And the text that will be in there is whichever one's selected, the text in between the option tags. All right, so getting the default values, and then we have our field set. This is our HTML, and this part here says that if the plus is selected, so if the op variable, which came from the get array, so if that's equal to plus, then we put in the selected equals selected here. All right. So what's the order of operations? When does the server go and look at these PHP tags? The client says, give me a web page, right? So then what happens? The server gets this file off the disk, and then what?
Sees if there's any PHP in there, and it runs it.
It'll scan it from the top and look for PHP tags. Anytime it sees a PHP tag, it'll run it. So it's generating anything that's not PHP tags, just gets put to the output. So it's scanning through anything that's not PHP, goes to the output, and when it sees a PHP, it runs it. And if there's any variables in there, those variables are alive in PHP land. And if there's any echo or print, then that'll go to the output. So sort of scanning from the top to the bottom. And the first thing that happens is go through and look for PHP tags. So you can put PHP tags in particular anywhere. So also down below I have one. Here's one. Actually, I got rid of that. No, yeah, here. The minimum and the maximum. So here's the minimum input. Input type equals text, name equals min, and the value is this. So in between quotes, I have a PHP section, whatever. So it's okay that it's in quotes because the very first thing that happens before the server is even thinking about HTML, it goes through and just runs the PHP. And actually, the server that's processing the PHP doesn't even need to understand HTML because it's just going to send the file back to the client. Right. For all the server cares, this is text. We could have something like, let's just see, September 22 a.php. What'll happen if I try to browse to that? We'll see. Why did I call it A? Let's call it B. So that's just plain text, and I could even put in here and this is more text. So it doesn't, when the PHP is running, it doesn't really have anything to do with HTML. That's for us to make sure. The server's not doing any checking on that. That's for us, the programmers, and then when it gets to the browser will be interpreting the HTML. Okay, so we were back over here. And how does this table actually get generated? Let's go back to some smaller. All right, so you can imagine there's going to be a for loop for each row. You're going to do something, and then inside of each row there's going to be for each column. So this is the code for that. If the form has been submitted, then we'll do the table. Otherwise the table won't get printed at all. And here's an example where I'm just printing all the table code inside of PHP. Whereas last time we had a for loops, and I had the PHP to do the if tests and stuff, and then I ended the PHP and in the middle put HTML. So remember that. So that's what that looks like. This is what it looks like to do it the other way. So there's the table. I put new lines in just to make it easy to read if somebody's looking at the source code. But that's not actually necessary. And then there's a header row here. So you start it with a TR, table row, and then table header. There's the op over here. That's the first thing. And then each of the columns. So from min up to max, we just print the value of the number up here. And then for the row, we're going to go from row min to max. Each row is going to start with a TR, end with a TR. It has a first data item that's the first column that has the value of that row. And then you have each of the columns. Okay, so then each of the columns, you just, depending on what the operation is, you do different arithmetic. And just to be, I'm not sure what happens in PHP if you try to divide by 0. It'll be some value like not a number or whatever, but so if they try to divide by 0, then I just leave it blank. And we need to make sure to remember to close all our curly braces. So if I take one out, we can see what happens. There's a PHP error, and if there's a PHP error, then you get nothing. All right, any questions? All right, you guys want to have a homework? PHP as well, so you could put that in. You would just modify where the select tag is, put in more options, and then down here you'd have to deal with more cases in the switch statement. Okay, so that's one thing you could do. You could also make different settings for the rows and the columns. So this min and max is for the row and the column, but we could have row min, row max, row column min, column max. That would give you more flexibility. So if you were a kid and you were practicing your times's, you would be doing like, I have kids, so I know this. So you might be doing 0 up to 10, but you don't start with the whole table. You really just start with the first 2 rows. Times 0 is easy, right? Times 1 is easy. And then you add this one. So you might want to be able to specify that the column goes up to 10 and the row goes up to 2. That would be like 2 more fields up here, and then you'd have to modify the code to deal with it. You could also have it skip by some amount. So you could only do the evens or only do the odds or something like that. Okay, so that's one option for an assignment. There could be other things to do, but those are the first things that come to my mind that are relatively easy to change this form. Another option would be some other type of arithmetic form. Convert between binary and decimal. Convert between miles and kilometers. The conversion form is a very popular first assignment, so I'm sure you would find all kinds of examples online. Or something else, some kind of just simple arithmetic kind of form. All right, take a minute and see which one you want to do, or them all. Or something else, suggest something else. Okay, so
Is it still going to be due on Thursday?
you should work on it, right? So if I don't make it due on Thursday, you won't start working on it. That's the problem. We could have a relatively easy part of it due Thursday, and then something else due. We could do that, so we'll make one problem due Thursday. All right, what do you guys want? Modifications to the multiplication table. Bench would be good. All right, why don't we do? Why don't we do something just modifications to this for Thursday, and then we'll do the next one for Tuesday. Doing something from scratch. Okay, so copy this into your and modify it so let's say add the operations mod and I don't know, why don't we just do all the easy binary ones? Or, that's bitwise or, bitwise and, left shift, right shift, XOR. Are there any others? Those are the ones that I can think of right now. All right, so that means that requires adding option tags to the select tag and also modifying the switch statement to handle these cases. Okay, that should be pretty easy. Probably should take you like 15 minutes maybe. let's give you one other thing to do. All right, so let's say that you also want to, and let's say, all right, grading. Already talk about grading. Let's make this worth, I don't know, 6, 8, let's call it 8. All right, 8 points. This part is worth 4 points. Okay, so then you also want to add 2 more input text fields so the user can select row range and column range. Requires putting in 2 input fields and modifying the for loops and dealing with variables. Okay, so that'll be, each part is 4 points. You could do them separately. So the first one should be pretty easy. And how will I grade it? I will grading, as always, exact file name, and pass all 3 validators. All right, so that's always going to be the case. I'll always do that first. So optional for your own good. Do some CSS, HTML to format things nicer. And I'll also required to link to alt table in your index.html. Let's just say your index.php. Okay, so go ahead and start linking to your assignments. And then you'll make sure that they don't look horrible because you'll be embarrassed that there's a link, right? Okay, so let's take a pause and you can see if you want to ask any questions about that. That'll be for Thursday.
On what basis will be shifting using left and right shift?
There's an operator,
I mean,
so you just do the operator.
that
I'll
has
say
to
it.
be shifted for like 2 or 3, right?
You can do it with anything. It'll end up giving you 0 eventually.
There's quiet. All right, questions. So the first one is about bit shifting. So note that, so you can do, so you could have x equals 5, y equals 3, and then x shifted by y. What would that print? What is shifting by 1? You're in binary, so the bit shifting is viewing the number in binary. So if you view 5 in binary, what is it?
1, 0.
1, 0, 1. That's 5 in binary. Then if you shift left, then it's adding zeros to the right. And adding a 0 to the right is the same as multiplying by 2. Just like adding a 0 to the right of a regular number, adding a 0 to the right of 98 is like multiplying by 10. So in binary, adding a 0 is multiplying by 2. So this should print you multiplied by 8. If you shift by 3, then you add 3 zeros. And if you shift to the right, if you do print x shifted to the right by 5, it should print, well, you start with 101, and this is like the end of the string, and you add zeros from the other side, and if you're trying to move this over, then it would be like 101, and this 1 disappears. That's shifted by 1. And then if you shift it by another, then the 0 disappears, and then if you shift it by another, then this disappears, and you're just left with zeros. Look up examples also for this is exclusive OR. Ampersand is bitwise and this vertical bar is bitwise OR. So if you need to look up examples for those, you can. But all you have to do in the PHP code is just use those here. So let's say this is a text field, and then there will be a select, and then there's going to be a, let's say, this equals P, there's a P tag here, let's say equals, did it come back? Okay, so this is going to be units, and this is going to be units. And then the choice of the units I will make up. All right, we're back. So this should be convert units.php must pass all 3 validators, must be linked from index.php. All right, and so then you're going to have text units equals text units, where units is a select box. And convert is a submit button. Units. Okay, and then your units, you will have to do choices for units 1 and units 2. Miles, kilometers, meters, inches, feet, yards, leagues, fathoms, light years, parsecs.
Are you looking at the internet, or you remember all that?
Huh? Let's go with nanometers, picometers, micrometers, millimeters, centimeters.
Space meters.
Are there any other English units? How about nautical miles? There's another kind of miles. Isn't there another one? There's a third one. No? All right. So let's say for basic to get started, let's start with that. Also add this. So we'll do this. If you get those working, how much is this going to be worth? Let's just make this worth 10 points. That's worth 8 points. And then do the rest for the last 2 points. So do these, first you get 2 of them working, right? And if you get 2 of them working, then it's pretty easy because it's just a couple of if tests. But if you get
1, 2, 3, 4. So if you get 5 of them, then there's 5 possible choices for the first unit and 5 possible choices for the second unit. That's 25 possible different things if you just do it with bunches of ifs. So you don't want to do it just with bunches of ifs. You want to figure out some other way to organize it. But you can try it first and then ask for a hint next time. Or you can look at other conversion programs, but if you look at something, put a link to what you... So I'll say, for keeping track of so many different types of units, you can look for examples. Don't copy paste anything, just look for the basic idea. And anything you look at, put a link at the bottom of your page with sources. Okay, so start doing that in all your assignments. If you happen to look, you're looking for how to do div and you find a good reference where you got some information, then put sources and just put a link at the bottom. All right, but don't copy anything. Okay, there you go. That's that to work on. Any questions about that?
What do you mean by three validators apart from HTML and CSS?
HTML, CSS, and the mobile one. So down in the, if you go down in the what we will do, and then you start going up, there's the 3 validators. And all I'll do is I will run a script that checks to see if your file's there and runs the 3 validators, and if it doesn't pass the 3 validators, I'm not going to look at it. So that's a good way to make you pass the validators. That also applies for homework 4. You should make it past the validators. If nothing else, you could put in add media, min size or whatever, 1,000, and then have all your stuff inside of there, and then have an at media smaller and have nothing, right? If you don't have any, you have your WordPress files, right? So somebody tell me their WordPress file, or let's see, let's take somebody's. 29.
Jeff, can you
Yeah, right. I like to do that. That doesn't.
Zero hyperlinks. Yeah.
Right. That's not. That's going to be fine anyway. Let's look at somebody else's. Yeah. All right. So for example, this menu here. If you just had the menu like that for a small screen, if you just had this as always being horizontal, that would be a problem on a small enough screen. But what you could do is just put an at media, make it for a large screen, and then for the small screen, it'll default to being bullets. And it won't look good, but it'll pass the validator at least. So at least make it pass the validator. Let's see, what is this person? This is whoever 00 is. Somebody with a name that starts with A, probably. Not that one. Where is the... What happens? So that doesn't look great. I don't know if that's going to pass the validator.
To some extent, and then it some extent minimizes it, but then afterwards it just goes.
Right, so that
media in there.
that's probably not going to pass the validator.
Yeah.
You guys will be in such high demand because there's all these web pages that don't look good on mobile, and you'll be having lots of practice. All right, let's do another example today. So there was a request to do a chat. we could do a simple version of a chat. I think at least we could get started and finish it next time. So a simple version of a chat program would just be a text box on the screen that you can type into, a button that you can press to say submit, and then down below it shows everything that anybody has ever submitted. So that would require a form, and then that would require us to keep information in a file. So we have to look up about files. So the way it would work for real is you would keep the information in a database, but we don't have databases yet. That's a couple weeks ahead. So we can just keep it in a file. Let's create the layout first. We'll call this chat. Okay, this is going to be the chat form. Okay, this is going to be chat. Does anybody know a multi-line text box? Text area? Name equals text. Value equals nothing. And then we'll say click to send. And get rid of all this stuff. All right, let's just make sure that looks okay. All right, what are the name is text. So we have input. There was a thing where we could do, does anybody remember this? It was in the PHP stuff. We want to make this multiple lines. Does anybody know the, what do we need to put to make it multiple lines, the option? Columns equals 5, no, columns equals 30, rows equals 5. No. Anybody else? Let's see, we want to do forms. We could just look it up. I'll look it up over here. Rows and calls, okay. Maybe. Maybe I have to do the size also. I guess I don't have to do that.
It's not equal.
Oh yeah. All right, we'll leave it like this and we can fix it later. All right, so we want to save the information into a text file. So let's go back and take a look at the PHP file IO. That's the next thing after the forms, I guess. And let's see. If they click submit, how do we know? This is our form. How do we know if they click submit? Or if they're just loading it for the first time? The other examples, we had is set, get, and then one of the input names. I believe the submit will also be we could also use that. Okay, so if they've submitted, then we want to add to the file. Array. Okay, we need to get into here. Here we go. File get contents. So file get contents gets the entire string. File gets an array of lines. Okay, so let's just check that now. So that's from the text file. Now we need to look up about putting on the end of a text file. Reading, writing, so put contents. So this is what we want to do, put contents. Okay, so saving to the file, we have the name of the file, we have the information we're going to save there, and append, and why don't we do put a new line in there as well. PHP. What did it say? Unexpected. Didn't like that. Okay, to be continued. I don't. That's the right kind of. There's something going on. There could be so. If so, this chat history.txt file. So this chat history.txt file. One thing is the file permissions. So what is the user that's going to be needing to write to the file?
Permission to write.
If we look at the so right now it's read writable by everybody. If I make it so it's only readable by myself, G minus W. Okay, so it's read writable by myself and it's readable by users. All right, to be continued. So this is the basic structure, but there's something wrong with some parameter or something. All right, so but later on what we would do, the right thing that we would do is so there's some things we already should do. So this is going to append to the file. That's fine. What could be a problem with this?
Try giving some other option instead of file append.
I don't know, something else. But what could go wrong with this already? That would be bad for us in the server. We're just storing this information in some text file, right? So somebody could write a program to repeatedly submit this form over and over again and fill up our disk. That would be bad.
Yes.
I mean, so once this is working, we'll add some check that says if the chat history is already too big, don't do it, or if the text is too big, don't do it. We could also add a limit to the number of characters in this field. We don't want somebody sending a gigabyte of characters right to us. So we should put in some checks like that. So we'll finish that next time. And then ultimately what we should do is have like a username and login or whatever. So we could have we could do that here. Let's say type something to chat and we'll put password so we could do this. I don't want text. Oh, I copied and pasted this. I don't want that. Okay, so there's a password, and then I could check and only say display the information if is set equals something like Eclipse. So only in that case will we display the chat history. And maybe only in that case will we allow them to do this other part as well. So if I type Eclipse, that shows up. So that's one way to do, right? You can just put a password like that. You could put a username, and then we have to be keeping track of usernames and passwords in the PHP code. That's not the right way to do it, but it's the way we know how. The right way would be to put that information in a database and pull it out of a database. And the right way would be to put this chat history in a database and pull it out of a database rather than having it just sitting around being a file. But we don't know that yet, so. All right, we'll keep going with this next time, and you have PHP homework to work on. And your WordPress sites, you need to get them to pass the mobile validator. All right, that's all. If you have any questions, you can come up and ask.